Henry Ford, a man that made America what it is today, a man that revolutionized the auto industry and is directly responsible for Ford Motor Company. With a resume like his, it's no secret that he built some type of fortune. But how? What sequence of events led to us knowing Henry Ford for what he was? Welcome back to Entrepreneur Central. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment down below saying I subscribed to enter this month's shout out giveaway, where we shout out one lucky person who subscribes and comments I subscribed. In this video here, we will be discussing how Henry Ford built his fortune. Henry Ford was a hard worker from the start. At 16 years old, he worked part-time at Westinghouse Engine Company, and in his spare time he messed around in a little machine shop that he set up. Eventually, he built a small tractor that used an old mowing machine for its chassis and a homemade steam engine for power. Basically, if you didn't know it by that point, he was already destined for great things. In 1893, Ford was made chief engineer at the main Detroit Edison Company plant, which had him on call at all times. So within that year, Henry Ford was able to create his first gasoline engine, and by 1896, he had finished his first horseless carriage called the quadricycle. The vehicle had a whopping 4 horsepower on a buggy frame mounted on top of bike wheels. This is where it gets interesting. Unlike other automotive inventors, including Charles Edgar, Elwood Haynes, and Charles Brady, all of whom built self-powered vehicles before Ford, Ford actually sold his finance work in order to work on the following iterations of his vehicle. During the next 7 years, Ford ended up with various backers that eventually formed the Detroit Automobile Company, which eventually became the Henry Ford Company. However, all eventually abandoned him because they wanted a passenger vehicle, while Ford felt that the vehicles were not quite ready for consumers yet. In 1902, Henry Ford left the company, which means the company reorganized as the Cadillac Motor Car Company. In 1903, Ford was ready to market a vehicle, and the Ford Motor Company became incorporated. The company had success from the start, but 5 weeks after becoming incorporated, the Association of Licensed Automobile Manufacturers tried to put him out of business for not being a licensed manufacturer. He had been denied a license by this group because they wanted to reserve the profits for its members, given that it was becoming a major industry. It took 6 years to gather all the evidence and for the case to be heard, and eventually Ford lost in 1909. However, by 1911, he won the appeal, making him a popular hero for the little guy. "I will build a motor car for the greater multitude," Ford said when he announced the Model T in 1908. In 19 years of the Model T's existence, Ford sold 15.5 million in the US, 1 million in Canada, and 250,000 in Great Britain. Basically, of all automobiles in the world, Ford was responsible for 50% of them. The Model T was the driving force to major change in the country. Any and everyone could travel, not just the rich. By 1914, Ford's new assembly plant was able to now churn out a complete chassis in 93 minutes, opposed to the original 728 minutes it took prior. By 1919, Henry Ford bought out 7 minority stockholders, in which he ended up paying $106 million for their stock. Never had one man held so much control over his business. Basically, Ford was able to not only start his company, but also keep his company under his thumb. And if you didn't agree, you had to go. So with the success that Ford Motor Company had, his fortune continued to grow, eventually making the Model A, which was surprisingly outsold by Chevy. The only time there was an economic struggle for Ford was during the Great Depression, in which he had to cut workers' pay down to $4 after increasing it to $7. To keep his family in control of Ford Motor Company, he created the Ford Foundation, in which all of his holdings went when he passed in 1947, making it the richest private organization in the world. Henry Ford was seen by some as a visionary and others as a madman. However, he did change the world as we know it today. Again, this has been Entrepreneur Central. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.